Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spend. Take another look now and take some time for hemp. I don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, right now it's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking time for hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leach. On the program today, we are going to be discussing the global hemp industry. It is an exciting market with new products coming online every day. And my joint host today, Andrea Herman, will be bringing with her a handful of her friends from all around the world to discuss what's happening in their country and on the global stage. Andrea is a pioneer in the field of hemp. Get it? Field of hemp. In 2022, she was the recipient of the Mother Earth Award. She's the working director of Inside Sales for HPS Foods. She has written books about hemp that are geared towards the children's market. During her 20-some-odd years of advising hemp businesses, she has accumulated numerous credits, including founder of the consulting hemp firm H. Grown in Mexico. She's the owner of Hemp Technologies in Canada, the founder of iHemp Radio. And in 2017, Andrea became the first woman to be inducted into the Hemp History Hall of Fame. It's an honor to have Andrea as a joint host today. And Andrea, I'm going to just kick back and learn with the rest of the audience and turn the program over to you.
All right. So, Summer, are you on the line there?
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, Summer. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm Summer Starhaski. I've got Enviro Textiles with my mother, Barbara Philippone. Long story short, I've pretty much grown up with hemp. My mother's been traveling the world making the hemp fabrics you see on today's marketplace. I was 10 years old sitting in Colorado State Senate hearings way back when. Back then we kind of were going, hey, hemp's good, it's great, let us grow it. We even got far enough to where we only lost by one vote all those years ago. And of course, today we've got a whole lot of great, credible information and more amazing products to really push it through. Enviro Textiles is a textile fabric supplier. So we stock over 100 various hemp fabrics in the U.S. To really give a good variety to brands wanting to implement hemp into their line. So we've got everything from 100% hemps to various blends and every weight and weave and color you could think of now. We do supplying to the brands that are out there making the hemp products. And of course, those brands are what are so important to be out in the public pushing, the products that we're really wanting to see people finally get to take advantage of and enjoy and create better health for themselves.
That's great. Well, thanks so much. So all the work that you and your mother have done throughout time to really put, hemp on people's backs and, pimping out rides and from the couture line to the very simple, plain, basic T-shirt. So we're really thankful to have you and your mother part of the industry. What part of the plant, for those that are out there that don't know, what part of the plant goes into the textiles?
Well, of course, hemp grows like a big stalk, and of course, the seed's coming off the top, and the stalk is what's holding our fiber. Now, there's a outer ribbon of that stalk, so it's almost like almost any kind of a twig. If you were to snap it in half and pull it, you almost see that outer core that kind of creates its own little strip of sorts. And that ribbon is where the textile grade fiber is coming from in that particular strain. And of course, it then has to go through combing to then grade out the various fiber lengths. That's something that comes up an awful lot is, why are hemp fabrics so much stronger than other natural fibers? That's something we all rave about, is that this hemp product's going to last forever for you, besides it being healthy and cool. And, the best explanation to that for people is, if you imagine that hemp fiber coming out of the ribbon, and that can be 8 to 18 inches long, that fiber. So it's like a hair. You've got this long hair, where a cotton fiber is anywhere from a 1/2 inch to 2 inches long. So when you're spinning those little hair fibers into a yarn that's going to then go into making a fabric, imagine all that extra length of the fiber all spinning together. And that's where our durability is coming in, is we've got these long, amazing hemp fibers that I like to say is like angel hair, because it really does look like it. And that's what's creating these extra long spins in the yarns that are holding them together like no other fiber can. So, that ribbon is really the least amount of usage in the hemp plant. So when we're looking at the whole hemp plant, there's only approximately 13% of that stock that's actually ribbon that goes to fiber. So within that 13%, you can imagine, a quarter of that is the longest grade A type fibers, and it gets shorter down to those 8 inches.
Now, Summer, one of the things that I think are, a question that we're going to have is, all right, once we have, and we will, once we're growing and cultivating industrial hemp in the United States, do we have facilities in the United States that can transform hemp and take this bast fiber, these ribbons that you described to us, and make that into clothing? Do those facilities exist? And if they do, can you talk a little bit about how Enviro Textiles is participating in that?
Well, it's unfortunate that back during the Great Depression, our nation lost its natural fiber textile industry. Those old factories were selling off their equipment for pennies on the dollar, and many of them pulled overseas. Now, we do have some capabilities here in the U.S. For example, we are spinning hemp yarns right here in Colorado right now. We've done spinning and weaving at various facilities throughout the Carolinas and the southern states of the U.S. So we can produce the end product. What the problem is right now is that we can't actually take that ribbon and bring it to the fiber grade that needs to then get spun and woven. So we are missing some parts of that puzzle, those first few pieces, and it's really not going to require too much. Now, obviously, when we look at global positioning of hemp right now, China is known for textiles, always has, and likely always will be. They've got amazing state-of-the-art facilities, and if we were to try to match that, it would be approximately $150 million facility to have the capabilities to do what we do overseas. Now, we have to think about that and go, okay, is that the direction we want to go in? Of course, myself would love to see hemp fabric made in the U.S., but we also have to be realistic on, are we going to see that support to build a facility of that sort? And also, would it be the smart move for the U.S.? Because are we going to be able to compete with a country like China, where there's so many products still needed on the global marketplace that might be a little bit more wiser to begin with? It might just be a little premature to go initially right into let's make hemp fabric in the U.S. And I think something a lot of us have all been talking about is, what strain's going to grow in the U.S. And it seems that it only makes sense, and that we have some advantages and support from our neighbors up there to initially start with that hemp seed strain. And if that's the case, of course, that ribbon from that strain is not going to be a textile grade to develop the type of fabrics that we're offering on today's marketplace. It would be more of a jute, like what we remember from way back in the day, and they'd have to be hand loomed on particular mechanical machines. And it's definitely possible, and it would be a novelty item. I'm sure there would be a small buyer base, but I think that all of us in the U.S. really want to see the U.S. go forward with a very strong industry base here.
Okay, Summer, we only have a few more minutes, but I think it's one of the amazing things that EnviroTextiles has done as recently is that you've become bio-preferred. Can you please tell us a little bit about bio-preferred and what that means with bio-preferred program?
Absolutely. Everybody knows the USDA's been certifying foods organic for a very long time now, and they have also realize they need to start certifying everything else. There are mandates being implemented stating we've got to start having healthier products. Maybe not so much because they're realizing the health of the people so much as what it's doing to the environment and taking away resources and things like that. People are starting to realize we have to make change. So the USDA has created what's called their bio-preferred program. And what that is certifying everything under the sun, and they're literally going down to the percentage of bio-based material within that product, which is very similar to our SBP program, which was modeled together. I mean, you have to really start thinking about the full transparency of your product. If one thing in it is good, great, but then you find out later that it took formaldehyde in this big chemical bath to make it happen. And ultimately, that finished product is no longer that natural, let alone healthy for you. And then they're claiming that it can be. So, it's really incredible to see the support from the USDA. They've implemented this program that is affordable for everyone. So farmers can certify to stay-at-home moms with little sewing co-ops in their communities. I mean, everyone can get involved. It's not a third party, let's charge you a fortune. And we're really not getting down to the nitty gritty on what's the life cycle or the transparency. It's only usually covering one piece of the whole puzzle. And now we really get to see what our products are made from. And, our U.S. labeling department is what really kind of needs to be cracked down on, because it's not fair for us to not know what's in our products. And so programs like this are letting us know. And I encourage anyone out there with a company to go on to biopreferred.gov and check that program out, apply for it. This is kind of going to give us the push into, being able to fill government contracts, getting more and more support from the different government programs and agencies that are utilizing those products. Some of those agencies are becoming mandatory that they must use those products. And out of those products, they have to go with whoever has the highest bio-based percentage. So, of course, us hemp folks are on top.
That's so great, Summer. Well, thank you so much for your time. And
thank you all.
I'd like to welcome Terry Wallace with Hemp Out and Hemp and Grain Canada. So, Terry, why don't you just kick off and tell us a little bit about what Hemp Out and Hemp and Grain Canada is all about?
Okay, well, thank you for having me and inviting me, Andrea. It's a real privilege and pleasure. Basically, Hemp Out movement was started about 4 years ago by myself and about 8 savvy women across North America. Hemp Out itself is really about a social movement in support of the hemp culture. So we simply educate, we promote, we market. We socially engage with the consumers online, offline, about all things hemp. So really what we did is we tagged it Hemp Out. The purpose was simply to educate the masses on hemp. So, I mean, we all know, hemp itself is so misunderstood, and alongside its illicit cousin, cannabis, right? So yet Hemp Out really felt a strong alliance and come together as women to collectively just bring more education to the masses. I mean, we all know that hemp is so versatile. It feeds the planet. It supports the sustainability. We saw that there was a social movement. It's got the cool factor. We really pride ourselves in being socially engaging on the social media sphere. We see food landscape changing. So we really are about educating and connecting with the consumers, watching the food trends in the marketplace and merchandising. And the girls do a great job on blogging and socially connecting with a lot of the like minds out there in the hemp and the cannabis culture, really just to show that there's a huge force and people just need to be educated. And, so that's where it came from. That's where we started, Andrea, and that's we continue to support the entire industry, both hemp and the cannabis culture.
And so, Terry, I mean, I know you have such a diverse background from, publishing, design, marketing, business administration, but also some of the things that you also have your CC in H, with the Natural Health Holistic Nutrition degree. We have a background, not just talking about, how can we market this and put this out there in our social media world, but when it comes to actually what hemp does in your body. And so give us a little bit, about what the role of Hemp Grain Canada is and how that message comes across when you're talking about that, looking at the market forces when it comes to hemp foods, when focusing on the nutrition side.
Absolutely. I mean, our corporation is Hemp and Grain Canada. I mean, what that is a devoted team of brokers, and we have an infrastructure to provide a source and service in North America, and we do particularly specialize in the hemp ingredient. And now we're working with the Canadian agriculture on the grain. So basically what we do, it's a group of us, and we all come from backgrounds, nutrition. We got clinical nutritionalists, sport nutrition. We got a food alchemist. We've got researchers, and we work towards marketing, direct selling, branding, a lot of technical support in-house to produce, private label products. Our motto is, from seed to sale, we first and foremost support the farmers. We pride ourselves in the vertical integration relationship between us, the farmer, and the consumer. So all in all, it's really a lot of our team, we kind of act more, not so much as brokers, but project managers with every project. And a lot of our business is really around the food industry. So we work together, and we really help people put food onto the market with our consulting team and all of our nutritional information, and we deal direct with, the Canadian agriculture. More importantly is all the hemp that we've been working with for the past 4 years, and it's been a lot of fun, and we see a lot of things opening up. I mean, when you talk about the major market forces, Andrea, when it comes to hemp foods, I mean, I truly believe it's today's conscious consumer that's, they're more informed now than ever. And I mean, part of my background is an extensive internet background. I mean, we started seeing the internet make huge changes in the industry and how the world is shifting through the internet, and globally and organically, the messages are spreading like wildfire. So, I mean, when you look at the market force, it's people are waking up. The world's shifting, it's transforming. Food landscape in general is more important now than ever. I mean, we have health issues such as celiac, diabetes. We've got chemical and environmental toxins, flooding the environment. There is, more regulations for growers now, more for food manufacturing, putting hemp-related food out on the marketplace. I mean, for anybody wanting to put that out, it's a daunting process to put, a food product out, let alone hemp.
So explain that a
go
little
ahead.
bit. You're talking now about. So if I come to you and I say, I want to start my own hemp brand, what would be your suggestion if I say, I really like eating hulled hemp seed. I've introduced it to some of my friends. They like it. I think I want to go in and start selling this and retailing this. Can you give us just a few steps on how somebody might get that started?
Absolutely. And that's a big part of what we do. I mean, it's becoming almost mainstream. These strong brands that are up and coming are becoming very competitive. I mean, we're in a world of the me culture, so a lot of private brandings are in the heat of the market and business strategy in today's business. I mean, if you Googled hemp, you're going to see very quickly this super incredible plant can produce over 30,000 different products. So, I mean, getting to your question, first and foremost, I will always say, I hope that there is a business plan, because with no plan, that's failure right there, right? And part of it is the marketing plan. Understand, it's not just to purchase the hemp seed. There's a lot of regulations. So when I work with people and the people in the office, when we're supporting this inquiry for branding the hemp, we need to really understand that there's a lot of compliances that need to take place before you can put a product on the shelf. So the first thing is do your business plan, the marketing plan. You probably have an idea or a design concept. Identify what food particularly you want to put out. Like hemp seed you can put hemp seeds out, protein or hemp oil. So identifying that. Identify your budget, do your research, find out your source providers, your hemp wholesalers, do your homework, get involved, understand there's a lot of the alliances, the HIA, the CHTA. Those groups are there to help and support and educate, and those are important tools for anybody to help identify where they're going and how they want to put a brand and really understand what the involvement of hemp is. And I mean, the first thing is just understanding the budget, your marketing plan, who's your target market, and then we can look at, services that we can help you with. We can consult with you. We can help you with the labeling, and you've got to comply with the Health Canadas out there and understand that it's not just putting hemp seed into a bag and putting it out there. There's a lot of things that is required. So that's part of what we do at the Hemp Out Agency, as well as other great leaders like Hemp Oil Canada. I mean, we're doing a lot of good things for private brands, and really because hemp is growing, it's got the cool factor. It's going on, right?
And you're bringing out a really good point about this collaboration that's happening within the industry. So you've got all of these, the companies are really working together to promote their brand, but then they're also not just promoting their own brand. I think what we're seeing within the hemp industry is everybody's helping to promote all of our brands, because we know that if you're successful at Hemp Out, another brand could be successful because you're going to reach somebody and they're going to buy on one retail shop and another retail shop. So that collaboration is really great. So, next on our lineup, it's an honor to start bringing in, Tony, are you on the line?
Yes. Can you hear me, Andrea?
Yes, I sure can. Well, Tony Buden, thank you so much for taking the time. Now I'll just let you go ahead and take over. And why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what the Hemporium's all about and where you're from.
Okay, well, I'm sitting in a very dark Cape Town, South Africa. It's now Friday evening, midwinter. And Hemporium, we started in 1996, very early on for the South African market, because there was no natural and organic market. And it very much started with a piece of hemp canvas that landed in our laps. And we started making bags out of it, but very much for the kind of counterculture, almost the wear what you smoke market, because no one else really looked at the plant positively here yet. And as we learned and kind of grew ourselves and saw all the other opportunities, the construction, the paper, the oils, nutrition, we suddenly thought, hold on, this is something that is so perfect for Africa. We've got the land, we've got the people who need work, we've got the right climate, everything is lined up, but why aren't we growing this here? So we started digging around and getting more into the lobbying. And we set a very lofty goal early on and to try to showcase everything hemp has to offer. So very quickly we were making clothing, we had a body care range we developed locally, we had accessories, we were selling fabric, we were selling paper, we were importing twines and ropes. And the real temptation with hemp is you want to do everything, but often then you spread yourself really thin. So we ran like that at the same time as starting to lobby and really try and say, look, to the government, here is right in our hands. We're holding these seeds that could be jobs, houses, and food. Let us grow this plant. And it's taken a long time. It stagnated in research for more than 10 years in South Africa. Basically, the research, the companies that were doing the research just getting more and more money to do more research. And we started our research in around 1998, and it still is currently technically in research. But a big step last year, which was we got our first permit to do something that's the next level on from agricultural research, which is what's called commercial incubation research. So first time it's coming off government land onto private farms, onto community farms, and we are starting to grow the industry.
Well, that's so amazing, Tony. I mean, what you guys have been able to do in what seems like a long time, but in perspective, all of that building up and that research that seemed to be taking so long really added what I would think a lot of legitimacy to what your efforts and the efforts of your entire team were doing there in South Africa. What can you explain to us? Are there any other parts in Africa that are, following your lead?
I think in Africa, everyone looks to South Africa for the lead, but because of this, the politics here and this stagnation in research, a lot of countries have been waiting for us to step forward, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. But we are starting to hear of projects in Mozambique, in Malawi, Ghana. The challenge is there very much at the moment, and it's something it seems small, but it's something that we're really going to have to look at as an industry, is finding the right cultivars that will grow so close to the equator. A lot of the European cultivars that we are forced to do research on down here, they don't like the shorter day lengths of Africa. So to find the right cultivars is essential, and that's why we're really trying to work with the Australians. They're a few years ahead of us on that. And to look at, we've got similar climates, look at finding these varieties. And I think Summer mentioned it, even between Canada and the States, there's the variety that is going to be specific for Africa and for different conditions in Africa. That's our next big push. Politically, we've got the same issue here, canophobia. A lot of the politicians, I meet with them, they all get it. I take all our samples in, they touch and feel, and they go, wow, this is a no-brainer. But to get them to stand up politically and say, right, I'm going to be your champion in government, I'm going to drive this, that has been a little bit of a challenge. And also we run into a bit of an issue internationally with World Bank loans, IMF, USAID, all of these things still telling us that cannabis is a drug, whether you're smoking it or feeding people with it or building houses. And that can affect certain things regarding interest rates on loans, because if that situation isn't taken care of, then we're still seen as promoting a drug industry because we're growing cannabis. So what's happening in America at the moment is it's crucial to the rest of the world, because there are a lot of the third world countries that are taking their lead from America.
Yeah, so one of the questions that come in from one of our panelists, Boris, he's got questions about talking about South Africa and big problems in the ghetto populations, and I know this is something that's really true to your heart. And he's wondering if there's ever been, what the consideration is in looking at a project scheme for growing, low-profile houses from field biomass. So I know that this is something that you're taking quite to heart. So can you share a little bit about, your project with building in South Africa and how you think that can help with these ghetto populations that you have?
Absolutely. We quickly saw in those meetings that we were having with your different politicians that when we pulled out the fabric and the paper and all, they were interested. But as soon as we pulled out the building materials, our samples of hemp insulation, hemp chipboard, the hempcrete, their eyes lit up literally, and they were really interested in the building side. So we took it on ourselves to build South Africa, or Africa, as far as we know, is first total hemp house. We built it with hempcrete, hemp chipboard, hemp insulation, hemp carpets, hemp couches, hemp curtains. We oiled the wood with hemp oil. Basically took it as far as we could with making an experiential place where you could come in, touch and feel and go, hold on, I can feel the energy in this house, and I can see that most of the wall is grown in 4 months, and there's no other resource that we know of that can do that. But if you look at our project online, there's a lot of videos and information. We chose to do it at the upper end because in Africa and in most countries, there's this thing called the aspiration model, where people want to live in something that they see in the magazines or on TV, or that it's much easier to get it onto that level and filter down than it is to go in and go try to brand ourselves as low cost. Because the reality is, until we've got economies of scale, we're not going to be low cost. We've still got a long way of building the industry up to get to a level where we can compete with brick and cement on a cost level, because our big push in South Africa, and as a natural industry, is about communicating to people the difference between price and cost. We always go, well, how does a hempcrete house, how does it differ in price to brick and cement, which is the normal building material here? And obviously on price, it's a little bit more, but the cost is so much less. And that's a whole re-engineering of a culture of people when they buy something to understand the life cycle of a plant or of a product. So I'm already feeling that I'm lucky enough or blessed enough to be living in the house that we built. And my energy costs every month are a fraction of what my friends are spending. We in South Africa, we deny that we have a cold climate, but we do. We get down to pretty much close to freezing in some areas in winter, but we live in cement and brick with very little insulation. And I had a Canadian come to me the other day who said he's never been colder in a house than in South Africa. So it's a whole new introduction of bringing this idea of natural building materials in. And that's, as I said, to start at the top. The ideal is to go to the low-cost housing, to be building houses for people on the ground. Obviously, that's our ultimate aim. But as I said, it's all based around creating the industry, collaborating, looking at the moment, you see in the industry people fighting over a pie that hasn't gone into the oven yet. We get a lot of people who are suddenly waking up to the potential of hemp, and they want to get in. They want to get in and they want to control it. And the first investors often ask me, like, okay, well, how will we stop people doing this? Like, you're not getting it. What we're trying to say is this is a big enough pie for everyone. And it's the same thing you mentioned a little bit earlier. The more we help each other grow this industry, the more we can all benefit. And it's the next level, as I said, for us is getting we've got our what's now called the Department of Human Settlements. It was our Department of Housing, which is when the ANC government took over in South Africa and apartheid ended, they had to build millions and millions of houses as fast as possible because they had promised this to their voters that everyone was going to get a house. But they built these terrible concrete block, tin roof houses that are literally a fridge in the summer, in the winter, and a hothouse in the summer. Now they've changed their name. The language has changed. They're calling themselves the Department of Human Settlements. So the humanity is coming back in, and they're starting to look at communities, at the other needs, community centers, shade, transport. And they recently come to us and they're interested in building 20 low-cost houses out of hempcrete, which will be huge. And that's what our government is saying to us at the moment is it might be quite a while before we can all a farmer can go to the government and say, I want to grow hemp, and then I'll create my market. They want us to create the market first so that we can say, look, we've got an order for 20 houses. For that, we need 50 hectares of hemp. This is who's going to be growing it. This is where the community is that we're working with. This is who's processing it. This is where we're getting the seeds. And this is where the product is going. And create closed loop systems so that we can work on a project for project basis. And that obviously is a more sustainable way of doing it as well. And we learned that from the Canadians. The Canadians, the first year, everyone grew hemp and everyone tried to sell hemp at the first year at the same time. And it nearly killed the industry because there wasn't the market and there wasn't the processing facilities. So we can grow it organically that way. That is our aim, to work with the government. But obviously, the big thing is hemp needs economies of scale. So we do need the permission to grow larger amounts.
Yeah, and I think that this is something, Tony, that we're hearing throughout. We're hearing, a couple of key points. We have a lot still to do in our industry. We have a lot still to develop. We have, collaboration and communication amongst the industry and government is really vital to strategically positioning ourselves to where we can make this industry go forward. And I think South Africa has, it's really advanced in the fact that, you can bring in hemp and process it there, hemp grain. Hemp foods are legal food in South Africa. You now have these, level up from a government research trial. So, big props to you and all the farmers you're working with and your entire team for staying with industrial hemp in South Africa and really fighting for the rights of farmers there, which in turn fights for the rights for farmers all across the world.
Thank you very much. And we'd just like to see the industry stay as open as possible, because for us, the reason we got involved with the cannabis plant or with hemp is that spirit of abundance, and that it can provide for so much. So the minute people come to us and say, well, we want to control this, I walk away from that meeting and I just say, look, I can't deal with you. And it might be altruistic, or it might be an idealist, but that is really the way that I want to conduct this business. I believe that there is so much in this plant and that it can offer, and I'm holding that vision. Obviously, we've got to do the nuts and bolts of creating the business and selling the fabric and getting the brand out there and getting people to touch and feel. That's why the clothing industry and what Summer is doing is, it's very important, because it's such a tangible way for someone to experience cannabis that isn't smoking. You walk out, you can see what someone's wearing, but you have no idea what's in their fridge at home or what's, in their bathroom cabinet, what kind of cosmetics they're using. But the clothing is such a good way to get the message forward and to say, look, hold on, touch this, feel this, and you can see it's not what you thought it was.
And that we still. And I tell you, I have a pair of a few things from the Hemporium's fashion line, and they definitely wear really nice and have classy cuts to them. Now, Casper, do you have any questions for Tony?
Yes, I want to know how it is that your government is able to create a market for hemp goods, then still at the same time, have they developed any type of future at the taxation of it and how they're going to implement the economy of it, who's going to oversee it, or is that still also up in limbo?
Well, the challenge with Africa as a whole is we're not dealing like in Canada or most of Europe. You're dealing with your modern farmers who have all the information, have their emails, the GPS coordinates, they're online. We've got to deal here with emerging farmers, and sometimes maybe they've got an acre or two of land, and they're very spread out. And we know that it won't happen in South Africa where it just gets permission for some big commercial farmer to grow hemp. We have to involve the community farmers. We have to revitalize our rural economy. Otherwise, our townships and the ghettos around every city just keep growing with people who leave the rural areas coming to looking for non-existent jobs. So that is a very important, the regulation side is very important and a very crucial part of what we're looking at. And we're trying to work it through the traditional leadership structures, that we can go through the chiefs of the areas into the small scale farmers and manage it by that. But obviously it's a whole different system to anything that's run anywhere else in the world. The government is coming on board with that, but more they're asking us to set it up, which is a little bit unfair. But the big part for us as an industry is right now we have to prove demand. Right now we have to go to them, and they're saying to us, okay, we hear you. We see the potential for this plant. We see what it can do, but tell us how you're going to do it. Who's going to process it? Who's going to manufacture it? What products you're going to do? Where you're going to do it? And obviously that is now going from a company and an industry that's been talking a lot and importing hemp fabric from China and chipboard from France and insulation from England and seed and oils from Canada and having a brand and selling a product to creating an industry and going from advocacy into developing an industry is a massive shift. So right now we're at this crucial point, and the government is walking around the edges but haven't yet given us the resources that we need to take it to that next level.
All right. Well, I would think that the surrounding environment that South Africa sits in. There's so much hunger. There are so many nations around South Africa who are starving and doing without. That we know this plant makes a tremendous healthy porridge, and the food that comes from it is amazing. And it also helps to create shelter. So that those who cannot afford luxurious homes or even a hempcrete home can put together a nice canvas hemp tent. I would think that if for no other reason than for the survival of the most poor in our world today, that your government would be just on the bandwagon trying to save themselves and those around them.
Well, it's happening, and what I've noticed a shift in the when I go to the meetings. 5 years ago or 10 years ago, the word alternative was this like, hey, man, that's alternative. That's hippie. We're not going to look at that. Right now, people going, what, you've got an alternative? Tell us about it. We want to hear about these alternatives because we're aware that if we carry on our current track, we're pretty much all stuffed. You know, there's no ways we can carry on consuming the way we've been going. So all of a sudden, they're looking seriously at what we've got to offer. And, you know, with, as I said, with the spirit of abundance in this plant, if we can just keep that going and communicate that and work together as an industry to actually build this, as I said, this massive hemp pie, even if we get a small little slice of it for ourselves for the rewards for the years we put in, it's beautiful if it comes out of a big pie. But people at the moment, you seem to be scrambling over the raw hemp dough that hasn't even gone into the oven yet. So I'd like to really speak to everyone out there in the industry is listening. Let's keep it open, keep the information flowing, and remember why we got into this industry in the first place.
That's exactly right. And Tony, that's a really great lead in talking about how you move from, an activistic point of view, working with the government, making those changes. And then, as one of the things Terry hit on was, how do you have got to build that business plan. You need to know what those markets are, not only for yourself, but as you move forward with your industry. So, Tony, thank you so much. Everybody take time to go down and visit Tony if you ever have the opportunity to go to Cape Town, South Africa. Go to the store, go to the cafe, get your full Hemporium experience. So, Tony, thank you so much for sharing and encouraging the continuation of sharing within our industry. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and I hope to meet you all later in the year. I'm really hoping to get over that side, so thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And all right, so Boris Banas, are you out there?
Hey, Andrea, I'm here.
Hi, Boris. Well, everybody, I'd like the opportunity to introduce Boris Banas with Hemp Seed Oil Europe. And Boris, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what you've got going on now in Europe?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you very much for having me here. It's a really big pleasure and an honor. My hemp experience practically began back when, 1997, I think, when I was in USA after, during my university studies, and I bought this nice little book from John Rulak called Industrial Hemp. And I said, wow. Of course, I knew cannabis. I knew something about hemp, but when I read this concentrated information about technical applications, I was amazed. So what we did, we decided to translate this little book in Slovak language. We did it. We did some fundraiser, published about 4,000 copies back in 1999, and we started to distribute this book free of charge to people. Try to build up the awareness of the Czechoslovak population and authorities about hemp. So this is where it all began.
All right, that's so great. And this is one of the things about North America helping, and John Rulak's little industrial hemp handbook really starting to shape a real change that happened in Slovakia. So tell us, what happened in Slovakia, and what was, why not hemp's involvement in this legislation?
Well, Slovakia became the member of European Union in 2004, and of course there is this so-called common agricultural policy which actually governs the cultivation of hemp in Europe. But individual governments may or may not apply these hemp rules. So still, industrial cannabis varieties were not exempt from the toxic substance law. And it was already 2008, 4 years after we have joined the EU, and Slovak farmers could not grow hemp freely as their competitors in other European countries. I mean, they could grow it, but the licensing procedure was really a pain. So we decided, us, our organization, and other two, we decided to form sort of a pressure group, and we filed a complaint to Brussels, to the headquarters of EU. We filed a complaint against our government, and after a few months, our government had to make the amendment to the toxic substance law. So since 2009, our farmers can grow hemp, industrial hemp, as any other farmer in the EU.
Very interesting. Now, one of the things that sort of has reigned true throughout this conversation is talking about registered cultivars. How many registered cultivars are there currently in the EU list, and what's that based on?
Well, at this moment, we have 43 registered cultivars, and the bottom line is the THC content in dried flowering tops. This limit is 0.2% of THC. Of course, there is a common regulation that specifies sampling and testing methodology, and this is all performed by national agricultural authorities.
So there's a really good, solid working relationship between, the Common Agricultural Policy, and a lot of that drives back to, which I know Boris is a member of, is the European Industrial Hemp Association, which really is the European Hemp Association's voice when it comes to being in Brussels and help pushing these change, also with the help of people working on the ground in places like the Czech Republic and in Slovakia. Now, can you tell us a little bit about how you transformed from being, okay, I'm going to educate, I want to put this book out, we're going to go to Brussels, we're going to make some change. So now what have you been working on, and what's your role now?
Well, we met about 7 years ago at those AHA conferences, and the Canadian crowd started to talk about hemp food and how they have actually developed the North American hemp food market. So me and my partner Michal, we suddenly saw a nice opportunity here. So we became involved with Hemp All Canada. That's who we represent now on European market. And we now put all our energy into marketing luxurious, the best hemp food in the world, in Europe.
And so tell me, what does the European hemp market look like? What percentage of that market is in the fiber side, and what percentage of that market is now to food? And are you seeing a shift to occur?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that hemp is still considered a fiber crop in Europe, right? So the majority of the acreage goes to the stalk production. Just to give you a perspective, in 2012, the total cultivation area in Europe was 14,000 hectares, which is 35,000 acres, and only a small portion of it goes to the seed production. So, for instance, Europe produced 76,000 metric tons of hemp straw, but only 7,000 metric tons of the seeds.
All right. So, and are you starting to see, of course, as we've heard about market planning and, developing that market, are you starting to see an increase in the demand for food-based hemp products in Europe?
Oh, definitely, because as was already said, I think by Terry, the beauty of the social media allows you to really promote for very, very little budget all these topics. So the consumers are educated, the prejudices are being torn down. So more and more people accept hemp food as a regular part of their diet.
And I think it's very interesting, when you're talking about 10 to 15% of all available hemp seed in Europe is used in the food sector, but a lot of that goes into the animal feed and wild bird feed. Now, I think that this is something that really, that we in Canada and other parts of the world are looking to Europe as the lead, because right now we do not have permission to feed animals your livestock hemp food. So, that's something that we're always looking to Europe as the lead, and we're starting to see these changes here in Canada with getting hemp food registered as chicken feed, and now starting on our ruminant trial. So I know that you guys have some really interesting research. Can you tell me a little bit about the research that you've been doing as of late?
Oh, yeah. Actually, now it's already in the stage of product development, and it seems we are very, very excited about it. It seems we'll be the first one in the world to introduce the whole line of hemp food derived from the germinated hemp seed, which is very, very exciting.
Now, this is great, and I'll let everybody know that, the work that Boris and Mikkel have been working on and their team, this is really something to show that, there still is room for innovation when it comes to production of hemp food. So we can take something, these guys have taken an idea, and now, as you said, gone into market development. So can you tell us what's going to be, what kind of products are going to come out of this new sprouting project?
Well, actually, we will introduce a whole line of products, including germinated and dried whole seed. Then we are going to press the oil, which we are already doing during our trials. Then we would mill the press cake and produce the protein powders and even dehull the germinated seed. Well, you have to understand that we are not talking about real sprouting when the green thing comes out. We are only talking about soaking the seed in water long enough for enzymes to start do their biochemical changes in the seed. And then we have a technology already at hand which can dry the seed down real fast under the raw temperature, which then allows us to process the seed, the germinated seed, as it was a regular hemp seed, but with quite different nutritional properties.
And that's very interesting. And also, I'd like for you just to take a few moments to hit on what efforts are going on. This is another concept that has been running true throughout everybody, is looking at, the different types of cultivars that are going to be suited for different types of applications. So what kind of work are you doing now to try to, resolve and push forward with varieties?
Well, Europe is quite diverse in its climate, yes, and if we want to really introduce hemp into Central European environment, we need to test some varieties and learn and teach the farmers how to use these varieties properly. So at this moment, we are also involved with the government-sponsored Industrial Research Institute of Vegetable Crops, which we have hired to conduct a 3 to 4 year variety trial. We are now using 2 Polish varieties and a Finola variety from Finland, which is widespread in Canada, as you know very well. We would really love to incorporate some Canadian varieties, but this year, we just didn't have enough time to finish all the licensing, import and export licensing paperwork, because the officials really want to see the nice stamped hard paper copies, not just PDFs. So hopefully next year we will also add 1 or 2 Canadian varieties to this project, so we will know how they behave in our climate.
Now, Casper, do you have any questions for Boris?
Yes, the number of products that can be made is absolutely amazing. But example, I think, is in Australia. They have food products made of hemp, but when they are marketed, on the bag or on the box, it must say, do not consume, this is not for edible, that type of thing. Yeah. Do you have those types of rules and regulations where you're at now, or are they pretty sane?
Unfortunately, not. Fortunately, not. The food, hemp seed is not governed by the United Nations Convention on toxic substances. So, from the perspective of the law or international engagements of individual countries, hemp seed is not a scheduled substance. But on the other hand, Europe does not have any common law or food safety policy with respect to the content of THC in the food. It's very good what you have in Canada and USA, so that there is an officially stated level of THC residues, which I believe is 10 ppm. So in some countries in Europe, we have these limits. For instance, in Germany and Holland, the limit is 5 parts per million. In Italy, for instance, they don't want to see any THC. So there is lots of paperwork involved. And in countries like Greece, people are prosecuted for importing hemp protein powder to their country. So it's rather silly. Still, Europe has to work a lot on this regulation side. At this moment, the only real legal activity began with the animal feed certification, but it's still in progress. So there is it's a gray zone. It's a gray zone. We are probably walking on a thin ice, but since nobody is bothering, we just do what we want to do.
Well, and there's another industry that does spring up from the plant itself. One example is if there was a lot of harvesting of this particular plant all around the world, there would be a need for a decoricator, as an example, which could be built by a country like yours, by people like yours who need jobs that would be able to put together such a fine machine and export that. So I would think that your leaders would be able to see not only the benefit of the plant itself to help raise itself up out of an economic situation and to bring people jobs and better products, but it would also give them an opportunity to compete more so on the open market in areas that no one else is.
Oh, absolutely, because the perspective of the small farmers is very, very difficult with respect of hemp farming, because, for example, in Central Europe, which are like countries like Poland, Czechoslovakia, Austria, Hungary, there is almost no decortication facility. And if you want to really develop a nice business plan for, let's say, 600 hectares, you have to look at the investment of 5 to 6 million euros, and nobody's going to lend you money, because unless you have a large-scale efficient technology, then you cannot deliver the fiber at the market price. So really, I agree with you. The small-scale decortication is the way to go to promote hemp growing.
Right. So where this comes back to talking about economies of scale and doing and working with varieties that are suited to the environment, and also not only working with those varieties, but looking at what your end product's going to be. So I'd really like to thank Boris for taking the time today, and all of his colleagues in Europe, and all of the efforts that they've done over time, and Mikhail for keeping with it and continuing to do is what we've all said today is sharing more about industrial hemp. So I'd like to thank you so much, Boris, for taking the time today, and hello to everybody there in Slovakia.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Do you have any questions for me, perhaps?
There is a large hemp industry that is thriving between the two countries in Canada and America, and it is quite amazing the amount of imports that are coming out of one country into the other, and that seems like a complete imbalance in trade, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we're seeing right now is that, as one of Summer said, textiles are huge in the United States. We know now that, hemp foods from Canada are moving all across the world. Tony said we're bringing hemp foods into South Africa. We're seeing them come into Australia. We're seeing them come, into the United States. So to balance that, we'll need more of that cultivation happening. Just yesterday, I was up in the Parkland region in Roblin at the Parkland Crop Diversification Foundation, and you can look up PCDF, Parkland Crop Diversification Foundation, and download many years of their extension work that they've been doing on industrial hemp. So any of the countries out there that are really looking at, how do I develop a research project? What would I look at in this research project? Looking at what the Parkland Crop Diversification Foundation has done in their extension work, has been really vital in really shaping, the Canadian agriculture. But delivering that message is really important to the farmer and working with the farmer, because if the farmer doesn't have that ag extension, they're not going to know what varieties are going to work for me. What should be my seeding rate? Is there a new piece of machinery out there that I should be looking at? So that relationship between ag extension and the relationship between the producer is really vital. In addition to that, over the next couple of weeks, I will be gearing up to do the THC sampling here in Canada, and that is a requirement by our Canadian regulations, where you have to go into the field and pull the samples that are then sent off to the lab to make sure that that plant is testing within our regulations at 0.3%. And this year in Canada, we're looking at around 50,000 acres to be licensed and cultivated across all of Canada. And part of what PCDF is doing is participating in a national variety trial. So we have a variety trial that's been going on all across Canada. And that's really showing that, one variety, as we've heard, one variety might grow well in one place. It might not perform so well in the other. So, that is a message running throughout also, is that, we really need to make sure that we're growing the variety or the cultivar that's really suited to our environment and into our end application. And now, talking about the fiber, I want to just turn the listening ears here to Greg Profound. Now, Greg, why don't you tell us a little bit about hemp technologies and the work you've done in North America, and how now you've taken that back to New Zealand?
Well, it's been a fantastic journey, starting hemp technologies in Asheville, North Carolina, where we built the first permanent hemp home in America and the first passive house certified hemp house in the world, all made with hemp. Anyway, after getting a bit of traction there, I was invited to start the first hemp house in New Zealand down in Christchurch. I came down here in August of 2011, and the first morning I was here, there was an earthquake, so another one, of course, and we got rocked out of bed, and the whole project got put on hold for 8 months. So I came up to the area that I was born, which is Taranaki, and lo and behold, I felt like I was home, and it was legal to grow industrial hemp here. We got the first license to grow since 1938 in this area, and did a trial crop last year of 1 acre, funded by the third leading political party here, the Green Party, on a certified organic farm. And we got another license about 20 minutes from New Plymouth into the area called Uranui, which is another microclimate. And we grew 10 acres out there of both of these crops. We trialed with the Compulti dual-purpose seed, and we went in 23rd and 24th of November, which was about a month later than we should have gone in, really. And we didn't know that we were going to get a drought all through the summer. But lo and behold, we pulled out about 1.25 tons seed off the 10 acres that we harvested in April. And that straw, interestingly enough, is sitting in the barn on the farmer's land, ready to be processed later this year when we start building the processing plant to build his daughter's house on the farm, all made with hempcrete. In the meantime...
You're talking about vertically integrating. You're talking about working with the farmer, growing the crop, harvesting it, now talking about getting into processing it and all the way into the home. So, Greg, can you tell us exactly what is hempcrete?
Well, hempcrete is a mixture of the soft inner core of the industrial hemp plant after the bast fiber has been stripped off it. It looks a little bit like wood mulch when you put it through the processing machine. And we mix that with some locally sourced and harvested limes and a little bit of water to make it stick. And then we place it or cast it in situ between temporary frames around the structural members of the house. That creates a monolithic light concrete style infill and super insulating and high sound attenuation for a livable, breathable, beautifully clean air home. And, I might add, about 75 to 80% more energy efficient.
And so lots of people have questions about, what's the R value of hemp? How much is building with hempcrete going to cost? And, how long does it take to start to reap the benefits of that cost when it comes to this energy savings you're talking about?
Well, that's a really good question, Andrea. Many people ask us this question, and typically the best answer to give is that it's a comparable in construction costs to brick and block. If you're going out to build a brick and block home, which is around a balloon framed or stick framed structure, it's going to cost you, in the United States, it'll cost you about $175 a square foot. And in fact, in some places, that cost is getting close to about $200 a square foot. In New Zealand, the average cost, for example, published by the New Zealand government for new house construction here is at $1,750 a square meter, or $175 a square foot in imperial terms. We are building the first 2 permitted hemp homes here at around $135 to $140.
Wow, so cheaper.
So actually, yes, I don't like saying cheaper. I mean, this is a premium product, Andrea, but yes, less expensive. And that's including the fact that we've had to import the materials from our partner's farm in the Netherlands because we don't have enough material yet. That's something that we're working on for this next year, because we've got, in such a considerably short period of time, we're getting a lot of traction and a lot of interest for building hempcrete homes.
And so when somebody comes to Hemp Technologies and they say, I've read a little bit about this and, I think this is what I want to do, one of the questions that people often ask me is, okay, I'm in the U.S., I'm in Canada, I'm somewhere, and how do I go about this, and how do I get the building codes and get my permit? So can you talk a little bit about how that works and how that worked for the homes that Hemp Technologies worked on and with our colleagues in the United States?
Yeah, for sure. We first found out about the non-conventional building codes when we were working with some building scientists in Asheville, North Carolina, to build the Now House project. And we discovered, interestingly enough, that people, and it's not actually illogical, but people have been building mud huts, for years and years and centuries before we had building inspectors and building compliance and safety issues. And in every code, in every state, every region, every county, every town, they have to have included in there or grandfathered in the non-conventional or alternative building codes. That allows for new materials to be introduced under, obviously under scrutiny, and they have to comply, but it allows for everybody to go ahead and use, if they need to, alternative or non-conventional building codes. Interestingly enough, in New Zealand, we've done the same thing, using the non-conventional, or in here we call it the alternative, building codes.
We are down to the last couple of minutes of the broadcast, and I want to thank everybody for the amazing conversation that we have brought the world and making available a fantastic tool for education. And Andrea, if you had just one thing left to say to the UN as to why industrial hemp needs to be reintroduced into the market, what would that be?
I would say that this is an agricultural crop that provides food and fiber for the health of our farms across the globe.
Thank you so very much. We ask that you let your friends know about this. You will be able to find this at the Time for Hemp website. Make it a point to share this MP3 with all your friends. And remember, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spend. Take another look now and take some time for hemp. I don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Right now